Really? Then, which would you prefer, divorce or caregiving? The one who presented me with this extreme choice was my husband, in the 15th year of our marriage. For many years, he has despised and exploited me. At 43 years old, with dim prospects for remarriage, he probably doesn't expect me to choose divorce. He is forcing this cruel choice upon me, fully aware of that fact. I sighed quietly so that my husband couldn't hear. Any affection I once had for my husband had already vanished from my heart. And he still doesn't know the fact that I would not be troubled by anything even if we divorced. While watching my husband's unpleasant smirk, I took a deep breath. Then, to release the long-accumulated resentment, I stared back at him intently. My name is Joyce Hill. I turned 43 this spring. My marriage to Solomon began from a romance, and 15 years have passed. Our meeting started when Solomon approached me at the bar I frequented. This bar is so hidden, I didn't expect to find someone as young and charming as you here. Would you like to drink together? Initially, I saw him as a frivolous person, but as we talked more, I began to see his charm. Solomon listened to me attentively and always laughed joyfully. I was drawn to his smile, and eventually, we started dating. 2 years later, we decided to get married. Is it true that he has debts? You should avoid marrying such a person. Most of the hardships will fall on you. It's not just about the debt, but I feel like he's hiding something. I can't entrust my precious daughter to someone like that. After I introduced Solomon to my parents, they expressed their opposition to our marriage. Solomon had lost his father when he was young and struggled financially during his college days. He explained that he had incurred debts to cover tuition and living expenses, but my parents were skeptical of his story. Could he be falsifying something? Enough. Even if you both don't approve, I'm going to marry Solomon. I married Solomon despite my parents' objections. As a result, this issue caused my relationship with my parents to become distant. More precisely, I was the one who distanced myself from them. 15 years have passed since I married Solomon. I am now 43 years old, but we have never had children. Solomon treats me not as a wife, but as someone who does household chores. Initially, we were a loving couple. We'll have kids someday. We used to say as we both led busy lives. However, just a year after our marriage, the company I was working for went bankrupt. At that time, Zelda, my mother-in-law, who was living separately, made this suggestion while I was busy looking for a new job. Why don't you just stay at home? That way you'll have kids in no time. Show me my grandchildren soon. 6 months into our marriage, my mother-in-law had already started pressing us for children. She saw the bankruptcy of my company as a perfect opportunity for me to stop job hunting. Honestly, it's difficult to make ends meet on Solomon's income alone. He is still paying off his college debts, and the living expenses he can provide me are limited. Ignoring Zelda's words, I managed to find a new job, but this seemed to have backfired. After that, my mother-in-law started throwing harsh words at me. I want to see my grandchildren soon, but Joyce doesn't understand my wishes at all. Oh, I should have opposed the marriage. Solomon could have found someone much better suited for him. She calmly stated these words in front of me, and her sarcasm became even more severe. What a useless daughter-in-law. Can't you even do this? I'm sorry. Every weekend, my mother-in-law calls me over to handle a massive amount of household chores. Shopping, cleaning, cooking, laundry, the domestic tasks are all left to me. I comply with her demands to help her, but she never thanks me. Instead, she only complains about my household skills. When you cook, the food tastes awful. Even store-bought dishes would be better, she says. When I buy prepared dishes, she complains. That's cutting corners or the flavor is too strong. However, I can't complain directly to Solomon's mother, so I just keep enduring it. Worse, Solomon has gradually come under his mother's influence and has started looking down on me. It can't be helped that your career was reset by changing jobs, but with such a low salary, it's impossible to make a living, right? You understand that, don't you? I can't afford to support you alone, so I want you to earn at least $30,000 a year. That's the standard. Since it was right after I changed jobs, my income was very low. Solomon was dissatisfied with this and demanded that I earn more, and in addition, he pressed me to perfectly handle the household chores and deal with my mother-in-law. After returning home, he does no housework at all, and on weekends he goes out and has fun. Solomon gives me only a few $100s for living expenses, and he spends the rest on his hobbies and pleasures. The debts he had from his student days were, at some point, fully paid off. It later became clear that these debts were due to a gambling addiction, and his story of being a struggling student was a lie. After we got married, by me paying most of the living expenses, he managed to gain financial leeway and pay off his debts. However, even after repaying his debts, the amount of living expenses he provided me remained small. In this situation, I continued to live frugally, but Solomon blamed me, saying, "We're living like this because you don't earn more." Due to this stressful lifestyle, one day, I suddenly collapsed at work. The doctor diagnosed it as being due to overwork. When Solomon and his mother visited the hospital, they were angry that I collapsed from overwork. "You're too weak to collapse from something like this. Can you really live like this?" they criticized me. What Solomon is saying is right. Really, it's pathetic to collapse from overwork. What if people think we're pushing you too hard? It would be embarrassing for us, she added. Despite their lack of concern for me, I had no energy left to argue with them as my fatigue had accumulated. Gradually, their harsh treatment became a routine part of my days. The reason I endure the harsh treatment from Solomon and his mother is because I decided to marry him, ignoring my parents' objections. I've been pushing myself because I took a strong stance against my parents, and I can't just give up because of a few difficulties. While enduring this, I suddenly realized that 15 years had passed since my marriage. During this time, Solomon and his mother's treatment of me has never improved. I've always been treated like their servant. I no longer have the energy to fight back. However, recently her health has worsened, and I've been called more frequently to take care of her. "Mother-in-law, you should go to the hospital." I've been doing the household chores at her house every week, but about a month ago, I noticed that her complexion was bad. Today, she looked particularly unwell, giving out orders in a harsh tone while sitting in her chair. Having been treated like a servant for years, I'm used to it, but I can't overlook someone who looks sick right in front of me. Still, she seems to dislike my concern. Stop playing doctor. I'll decide about my own health. But, quiet. While shouting, she threw a cup from the table in my direction. However, lacking strength, the cup didn't reach me and fell at her feet instead. "What are you doing?" "Pick up that cup and clean it up." Seemingly wanting to get away from me quickly, she staggered up from her chair and went into the next room. I silently wiped up the contents of the cup that had fallen to the floor. Well, she's so energetic, she must be fine. I had been discussing her health with Solomon, but he showed little interest. "Taking care of my mother is your job, isn't it?" There's not much I can do if you tell me about it. Normally I say nothing, but this time I wanted to retort, but she's your mother, isn't she? But retorting wouldn't change the situation. If anything, it would just lead to Solomon complaining more. Lately, Solomon's return home has been getting later. I haven't had the chance to discuss her condition, and the days just pass by. And then one day, everything changed. What? My mother-in-law was rushed to the emergency room. I received a call from the hospital while I was at the office. They tried calling Solomon, but he didn't answer, so the call eventually came to me. I hurriedly wrapped up my work and headed to the hospital. She had collapsed while shopping at a local deli. According to the doctor, although her life was not in danger, she would need support for daily activities after being discharged. Can it be? Until now, she had lived separately from us, and that distance was what made my difficult life somewhat bearable. But if we were to live together, I had not been disturbed by her harassment over the past 15 years, but now I was filled with anxiety. If I were to live with her, would I be able to maintain my mental health? After hearing the situation at the hospital, I left her in the doctor's care and returned home. Solomon hadn't come to the hospital, he was waiting at home. When I explained what had happened, he became angry. Why didn't you take her to the hospital sooner? It's your fault that my mother ended up in this condition. I had repeatedly urged her to go to the hospital, but she wouldn't listen to me. I had consulted Solomon about it, but he found it too bothersome and did nothing. Really, is this my fault? As I silently pondered, Solomon sighed heavily. Then, he made an unbelievable suggestion. Now that things have come to this, there's no choice but to have my mother live here. We'll sell her house and land. Of course, you will take on the caregiving. Using caregiving services would be too expensive, so I'm leaving all of her care to you. What? But then I won't be able to continue working. What are you talking about? It's only natural that you continue with your job and the housework as before. Saying that you can't do your job or housework because of caregiving is just an excuse. Faced with Solomon's unreasonable remarks, I was simply stunned. Does he really think I can handle caregiving, work, and household chores all by myself? It's impossible. At these words that slipped out unexpectedly, Solomon reacted, If we're going to take care of your mother here, we must share the responsibilities of household and caregiving. It's impossible for me to do everything alone. Solomon looked surprised at my rebuttal. Having spent the past 15 years mostly without defiance, not only he but also I was surprised by my own reaction. However, those spontaneous words highlighted how unrealistic his demands were. Solomon frowned and retorted, Is that so? Then, which would you prefer, divorce or caregiving? Choose either. I don't care. While saying this, Solomon gave an unpleasant smirk, imposing a tremendous choice on me. You're not on good terms with your parents, and if we divorce, who will you rely on? It'll be difficult for a woman alone to live decently. With such a low salary, if you leave me, that's the end. Without me, could you even survive? Thus, Solomon confidently indicated that divorce was not an option for me. Witnessing him looking down on me with such arrogance, it felt like something inside me broke. All right then, I choose divorce. I'm moving out today. Why don't you ask your 23-year-old lover to take care of her? What? Surprised by my unexpected response, Solomon let out a jesting tone I had never heard before. His voice sounded so pitiful that I almost laughed, but I thought better of it, as laughing would not help the situation progress. Holding back my laughter, I pulled out something I had been hiding in my bag for a long time, Here, take this." While puzzled, Solomon took the bulging brown envelope I offered him. As he checked the contents of the envelope, his face gradually turned pale. "What is this?" As Solomon's voice trembled, I answered calmly, "It's evidence of your affair with your 23-year-old lover." The envelope contained numerous photographs. In the photos, Solomon was seen intimately linking arms with a young woman. Solomon's return home had started to get later 6 months ago. At that time, I began to suspect his dishonest actions, but I had yet to obtain concrete evidence. However, his consistently cheerful demeanor when he came home every day intuitively told me something was off. So I hired a detective and discovered that he was indeed having an affair. His affair partner was a 23-year-old stripper. He first visited the cabaret club as part of a business association. Solomon, inherently frivolous, had dated several women before our marriage, but it seemed that these women issues had resolved after he shifted his interests elsewhere post-marriage. However, one day, invited to a strip club by a business contact, he met a woman who perfectly matched his ideals and fell for her instantly. Since then, he has been pouring his salary into that strip club, eventually forming an intimate relationship with the stripper. Your affair partner? She's cute and young, but do you think she can take care of your mother? Your mother likes to give orders, and she will be even more demanding after she's discharged. Pointing to the woman in the photos, I confronted Solomon. No, this is a misunderstanding. It was just a bit of fun, not an affair. He stammered, his previous confidence vanished, and he began to offer a feeble excuse. "Oh, just a bit of fun, huh?" "Yes, that's right." I didn't intend to do anything serious. Cutting off his excuses, I sighed heavily and stopped the conversation. Then, I pulled out my smartphone and played an audio file. "I'll divorce my wife soon, and then I'll marry you right after. I'll protect you for the rest of your life." Hearing Solomon's sweet voice from the smartphone, I grimaced with discomfort. Meanwhile, Solomon, pale-faced, stared at me, demanding to know why I had such a thing. "This is just a part of the evidence collected by the detective agency. There are loads of your call records with her. And whether or not you were serious doesn't matter. Having an affair with someone else while married to me is clearly infidelity." While saying that, I selected a photo from the stack of evidence and showed it to Solomon. In the photo, they were captured entering a hotel, arms linked intimately. "Do you want to see more? I can show you plenty of other evidence. Are you still planning to make excuses?" Solomon shuddered at my challenging question. He probably realized that he could no longer talk his way out of this. Changing tactics, he began to accuse me. "Hey, did you use my money to hire a detective? Using my hard-earned money for such wasteful spending? Give me back my money." Caught off guard by this unexpected attack, I was momentarily at a loss for words. Solomon seized this opportunity to further his verbal assault. "Do you know how much it costs to hire a detective? Using my money for such a ridiculous investigation? You're the worst wife. Well, if you return the money with interest, I might forgive you this time." Seeing Solomon twist the situation for his own benefit, I was utterly astounded and asked, "When did you become so petty?" Struggling to maintain my composure, I calmly retorted to Solomon, "I used my own savings for the detective. I haven't touched your money at all, so no worries there." "That can't be true. There's no way you have that much money to hire a detective. Or, did you not know that I was recently promoted to department manager? I'm earning quite a sum now." Solomon was visibly shocked by this unexpected revelation. After graduating from college, The company where I had worked for a long time went bankrupt due to the economic downturn. In my next job, I started from scratch as a basic sales clerk, despite leveraging my experience. I was initially placed in a sales administration role, but there was a system in place that promised additional bonuses for success, not just a base salary. Content at first with the administrative position, I faced Solomon's complaints of earn more and directly requested my boss for a transfer to sales. The sales role was challenging, but I embraced the challenge and became the first person to transition from an administrative to a sales role at the company. At the time, the company was seriously short-staffed in sales, and help was desperately needed. After handing over the sales admin tasks to a newly joined female employee, I started focusing entirely on sales. The sales job was indeed tough, but it turned out to be surprisingly suitable for me. I achieved results that matched those of my male colleagues and gradually earned recognition, leading to multiple promotions. Now, I hold the position of department manager. While many women interrupt their careers for childbirth and childcare, I was able to continue working because Solomon and I didn't have children. This allowed me to build and advance my career. Had we had children, my career might have been interrupted, and divorcing Solomon could have been more complicated. Why didn't you tell me something so important? I tried to tell you. But whenever I tried to talk, you hardly listened, did you? When I decided to transition from sales administration to a sales position, I attempted to share this with Solomon. However, he said, "Work talk? Spare me. I don't want to hear about it when I come home. I'm tired." And with that, he never listened to the end of my story. With each promotion, I tried again to tell Solomon, but he never seemed interested in listening. Despite his constant demands for me to earn more, he showed no real interest in what kind of work I was doing or how much I was actually earning. It was last winter when I saw the amount of the bonus I received from the company, and a thought struck me. If I'm handling such a large amount of money, I could live comfortably on my own. I had never thought that way before, but at that moment, it just came to me naturally. Perhaps I had been harboring some dissatisfaction with my situation for a long time. I had married Solomon despite strong opposition from my parents, telling myself that I must overcome any difficulties to stay with him. However, even with such determination, there are limits to what one can endure. After 15 years of marriage, I finally reached that limit. Following this realization, I decided to divorce and hired a detective for that purpose. While I had suspected Solomon's dishonest behavior, I had not yet taken any concrete steps. Until now, I had not considered divorce as an option, convincing myself that I should stay with Solomon no matter how hard it was. However, the moment I decided to divorce, I took action. I finally obtained proof of the affair, and now I am confronting Solomon. Solomon has not treated me as an equal. To him, I was merely a convenient tool, routinely belittled and treated like a servant. Before our marriage, he was kind and listened to me. However, at some point, he changed into this cold person. Perhaps I just hadn't noticed before, but maybe Solomon was always like this. Who would want to stay with such a person? Normally, it's impossible. That's why I chose divorce. I definitely do not want to take care of a mother-in-law who has never valued me from the start. Even if offered money, I would refuse. After her collapse, my mother-in-law's body became frail, but her mind remained sharp. If I were to care for her at home after her discharge, it's certain she would treat me more like a servant than before. I would consider caregiving if she respected and appreciated me, but expecting such an attitude from her is unrealistic. When Solomon confidently forced me to choose between caregiving and divorce, my mind was already made up. I should tell you, I earn more than you do. What? Despite your lack of substantial contributions to our living expenses, the fact you never questioned our lifestyle shows how oblivious you are. The reason you could eat every day is because I was earning. It seems you still don't understand, but you're the one who would be in trouble if we divorced. Solomon, who has always looked down on me, is clearly upset to learn that I earn more. His face turns red, his lips press tightly together, and he trembles with anger as he glares at me. As I watch him in disbelief, he blurts out something unexpected. Fine, I get it. I want a divorce from such an arrogant woman like you. In exchange, give me half of your savings. There's such a thing as division of property. His foolishness makes me look up to the sky in frustration. But I quickly return my gaze to him and deliver a further blow with a cold voice. If you're going to claim division of property, you'll need to speak to my lawyer. What? A lawyer? Are you surprised? I've already contracted a lawyer to handle the division of assets. If Solomon had said he would take care of his mother's caregiving himself, I would have reconsidered the divorce and put the lawyer on hold. Originally, I had intended to overlook Solomon's infidelity and get through this tough period together. I hadn't expected him to make such a proposal, but it ended up this way. Solomon clearly became flustered the moment he heard the word lawyer. A lawyer, is that? Isn't this something we can handle ourselves? There's no need to go that far. You've never listened to me properly and have ignored me all along. That's why I think it's impossible for us to resolve this alone. Moreover, I want you to take responsibility for everything that's happened, and involving a professional is the best way to ensure that. Solomon looked around anxiously with a pale face. Did you really think you did nothing wrong? At that, Solomon's face contorted even more. He had demeaned and treated me like a servant, but he seemingly never anticipated being retaliated against in such a manner. His selfish actions made me regret marrying him and resent my own choices. Then, I'll start packing. You figure out the rest. As I said this and began to leave, Solomon suddenly reached out and grabbed the hem of my clothes. Wait. Let go. I don't have any money. I frowned at Solomon's sudden confession. I got obsessed with the stripper and bought her lots of designer goods to get her attention. Because of that, my savings are almost gone. That's why I don't have any money to give you. Recently, I've even been borrowing a bit from my mother's pension. Unbelievable. You've been using your own mother's pension. This was the first I'd heard of it, but it seemed like something Solomon would do. A thought suddenly struck me. You never talked about living together before, but as soon as your mother got sick, you suggested it. Not really for her sake, but for your own benefit, right? Are you trying to sell her house and land to get the money? At my words, Solomon awkwardly diverted his gaze. The nausea stirred within me knowing my husband could act so calculatingly. You're truly despicable. To do such things for your own gain. I've been treated horribly by your mother, but I do feel sorry for her having such a son. However, while I might feel a hint of sympathy, I'm not about to forgive all her past actions. I shook off Solomon's hand and declared coldly, "It doesn't matter that your savings are depleted. If necessary, I'll have your wages garnished to cover the costs. I have a divorce lawyer who's experienced in these matters." Wait, please reconsider. I'm begging you. It's impossible. No matter how firmly I refused, Solomon showed no signs of giving up easily. He knelt down as if atoning for a grave sin, desperately begging for forgiveness. "I'm truly sorry. From now on, I'll change and start over. I'll help with my mother's care, of course, and I'll actively assist with the household chores. And I'll never cheat again. If you divorce me, my life has no future," he pleaded. It seemed he finally understood that his daily life couldn't function without me. But it was too late. "How can I believe your words now after years of betrayal? You are incredibly naive and detached from reality. I am determined to go through with this divorce by any means necessary," I stated resolutely. "No way," Solomon exclaimed in shock. "What you are about to face is the natural consequence of your continuous disregard for me. Just quietly accept it. Be prepared," I told him. A look of complete despair crossed Solomon's face, and he collapsed weakly to the floor. Following that, we formally proceeded with the divorce and successfully settled the division of assets with the help of a lawyer. Solomon decided to take care of his mother and sold the house and land she owned. He then used the proceeds from the sale to pay the alimony. After the divorce, Solomon, now left only with the stripper he had been involved with, proposed marriage to her. "My wife has left me, and I've lost everything. You're all I have left. Help me, marry me, and take care of my mother." However, the stripper firmly rejected his proposal. She was only using Solomon's emotions for her business, confused by genuine affection, and sternly rejected him, insisting he never come to the club again. When Solomon proposed marriage to the young stripper, intending for her to take care of his mother, it was an unbearable request for her. Solomon, once charming, seemed to have lost his ability to understand women over time. 15 years had passed, and the man he once was no longer existed. Ultimately, his relationship with the stripper he met at the strip club ended with him being banned from the establishment. All the money and time he had invested there vanished without yielding anything. I did not demand an apology from the stripper. When I found out his affair partner worked at the strip club, I intuitively understood it was part of her professional behavior. I am grateful to her for cooperating to smooth the divorce process. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law was initially pleased to hear about our divorce but found reality far from her expectations after being discharged from the hospital. She suffers under Solomon's inadequate care and repeatedly pleads for my return. "Why did you divorce Joyce? You are the reason I am suffering so much," she lashes out at her son. She seems utterly unaware that she was part of the reason for our divorce. If she had been more understanding, she might not have left Solomon alone, and perhaps we would not have divorced. However, my mother-in-law is very self-centered, much like Solomon. Financially unable to afford caregiving services, Solomon finds himself in a dire situation regarding his mother's care. Thinking of this as a long-deserved punishment for their treatment of me, I sometimes feel that this is still relatively mild. Their future seems wrapped in misfortune and darkness. Whatever future awaits them, I find myself detached from any particular feelings about it. It's their just dessert, I think, without much emotion. After the divorce, I visited my parents' home to apologize sincerely for my past actions. I was prepared for potential estrangement, but contrary to my expectations, my parents warmly welcomed me back. "If you are happy, then we are satisfied," my parents told me. "Yes, you are always our beloved daughter. Your happiness is the most important thing to us," my mother added. "Mom, Dad, thank you so much." I expressed my deep gratitude. In fact, my parents had forgiven me from the beginning, and I am just grateful for their tolerance. Currently, I have rented a new apartment near my parents' home and have started a new chapter. Although my job remains busy as before, not having to worry about Solomon or Zelda has significantly eased my life. In the future, even if I have the opportunity to remarry, I plan to be more cautious when choosing a partner. But for now, I think it might be quite nice to spend some time alone. I am considering enjoying this independent life. I cherish these peaceful days.